Ladies and gentlemen, Cone Dodger here. Welcome to a very special Cone on the Road. I am quite far from home, 3,000 plus miles. So, as I am visiting the greater Seattle area for PAX West, and while I was up here, I wanted to do a Cone on the Road in one Kerche Max 1977 Toyota Corolla. This is Kurt's first project car / fun car, and it's very interesting. It's certainly a lot different from anything that I've really driven before. It's from an era prior to the era where I kind of started getting into cars. You know, I started out much more into the 90s and I kind of slowly worked myself back into the 80s a little bit. But this is prior to all of that. 77, it's still carbureted, it's still manual steering, it's as basic an automobile as I have ever driven. And we are currently out here driving on to me, it's a very scenic and interesting road. To natives, it's probably just a normal road. But we are in Monroe, Washington, out on some farm roads. Came up here with Kurt the other day to check it out and decided that this is the road that I wanted to drive for a Cone on the Road. I have now been out here for 12-ish days or so. And this is the first recording or anything I've done. And a little rusty at this. Also, you know, traveling and such, it wears out a person. But probably the biggest thing that I've done while up here is just gone out exploring, because it's so much different. Having been in Florida for 25 years and having never driven anywhere besides in Florida, it's really very cool. I will be very hard pressed to make interesting Cone on the Road videos for a little while, or have interest in them, because just driving to here is more interesting than all of the driving I do in a year where I am from. It's very, very different. And I'm going to be very spoiled. But what about the Corolla? So, this thing is pretty stock. He recently did the Weber carburetor conversion on it, which honestly, the fact that this thing made it to 2018 with the factory Hitachi, I believe, or Aisin carburetor on there is a miracle and very bizarre, because that does not happen often. The stock carburetors on these things were quite detuned. They pulled significant amounts of performance out of them by this era to try and make them as economical as possible. What's really cool and interesting about the car is that it is a Corolla. This was never intended to be a sports car. This was never intended to be even an enthusiast car. But 41 years later, it presents itself that way just because it's so much more basic an approach to an automobile than you'll find in anything on the road. I think the best comparison I've been able to come up with is it's very similar to driving an early Mazda Miata. And I feel like this is the era that Mazda was trying to replicate when they created this car. Or when they created the Miata, not this car. It's just light, simple. The suspension is very simple. This thing's got leaf springs in the back and a solid rear end still. There is basically nothing to this car that is fancy. And at its best, it made 75 horsepower. At its worst now, or when it's before the carburetor swap and everything, for started doing some tuning on it and whatnot, could have been like 50 horsepower. But even with that, it's still fun because of the same ways that a Miata is fun. It's momentum. It's the feel. You feel every action you do in a car like this has a reaction, and it tells you that. It doesn't just hide it underneath of electronics or just advanced suspension dampening and stuff. It's all there, and you'll never be able to match this again in a modern car. That's just impossible. So it's interesting. It's interesting that a car that in its heyday, in its creation, was nothing. These were people movers. These were cars of everybody. But it's easy to see why a car like this is what, pushed Toyota and pushed the Japanese car manufacturers to where they are today. It's interesting that they seem to have completely abandoned this logic, but I guess that's just kind of the way they do, They work with whatever they have and do the best they can with it, and I guess it's kind of like a dare to be different thing. Like, this kind of stuff the American manufacturers were not doing in 1977 or whenever. This is dramatically different than that. I'm impressed by how able it seems to have been. I bet you we put, 100 plus miles on the thing. And one thing I've learned about the greater Seattle area is nothing is near anything, and everything is connected by not highways, but just roads. Like I said, there's no way to get from point A to point B without taking some kind of quote-unquote back road, or back road to me, to get there. And that also includes roads that turn into highways and then turn back into roads. So yeah, I've had this thing, sitting at 70 miles an hour on a highway, and over the course of the week I've been doing a lot of tuning and that kind of stuff, trying to get it into a place where I felt like it was a little happier, and so far so good. I mean, like I said, it's done us very well. I mean, it's not perfect. It's a 41-year-old car. It's got its flaws. It's got leaks and rattles and squeaks and all that good stuff. But other than that, it just kind of goes. It has a job and it does it. And again, with the where did Toyota and where did the Japanese manufacturers come from? This is the era. This is the era where they built the reputation that they have and have exploited to the nth degree. Hey, someone else has a fun car out here. I bet you I'm having more fun in this than that guy in the Jag is having. This is about all she's got. I think it still needs a little tuning. It feels like it's a little flat up in the high end, and especially if you were to give it throttle, above 50% or so. At first, it seemed like it would just completely fall on its face when you would give it throttle, beyond 50%. Whenever you had any RPM in it, or really just at all. The car would just kind of fall flat. And what the crew, we've had a Discord group crew trying to help me tune the thing and get it going effectively. What the general consensus was that this car had been owned by somebody that probably didn't know too terribly much about working on cars, and more than anything, just didn't really know what direction. How do I word this? Like, the car was owned by somebody that bought it, kind of got a basic, I don't want to say restoration, but they had somebody fix it up for them, painted it, and all that good stuff. But mechanically, maybe got a little bit lost with it because, like I said, the original carburetor was still on there. This is a smog car, meaning that it would basically pump exhaust gases back into itself, and lift it off. And all that stuff, yeah, it just leads me to believe that maybe the person that owned it didn't really have too much of an idea as to what they were doing with it or what they were doing. And just did the kind of like the, how would you word it? The good old boy techniques on it, like, just throw some timing at it and it'll be good. And got it pretty far out of whack, and it had like 10 to 15 degrees too much timing in it and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we got it dialed back in, and now it's happier, but there's still a ways to go with it. There's still room for improvement for sure. But overall, it's a much happier car now than it was when I got here, which makes me happy, because I want Kurt to be able to enjoy this thing and enjoy doing the stuff that I know he will enjoy. He's going to enjoy the detail fixing, things like getting the dash pad fixed, things like the blinker is a little intermittent. It doesn't always work right. The little things like that, that I'm not going to say they're unimportant. They certainly are important, but they're not as tuning oriented. They're not as usability oriented. There's a good term for it. So what I wanted was for the car to be at a point where Kurt could fire it up whenever he wanted and go take it for a drive and just enjoy it. And that, I think, is pretty much where it is now. And I do believe he's gotten more comfortable with the car as a product, like as it drives. It's certainly proved itself. Not to say that it's going to be flawless and nothing's ever going to go wrong, but it certainly has been put through its paces and is doing well. I'm trying to give myself a gap to the scooter that has decided to also use this road. I feel like Matt Farah. I love the little thing. It's a quiet riot. It does everything extremely subtly, and it doesn't make a lot of noise. It's not obnoxious. It's a little bright in the yellow department, but overall it's cool to see, and it's neat. But it's not something that's like, that person's trying to have themselves a performance car. It's not that at all. And if anything, it kind of lowers people's expectations a little bit, which is good, because then it can, surprise them and really overachieve. It's an overachiever. Certainly has given me a lot of inspiration to get the Datsun going, our Datsun pickup, because this experience, this kind of driving experience, it's not something I would want every day. It's not something that I would daily drive anymore, or even just for as little commute as I have. It's not an only car, but it's just that nice reminder, or it's a nice little time capsule into what once was. An era that I wasn't even alive for. This is an era that I never experienced, and I basically have a little time machine here to bring me to that era. I don't know how long that will be a thing. I don't know how long, as a people, we're going to be allowed, quote unquote, to drive our old cars, and this might be something that, should anyone accidentally have kids with me someday, those kids might not ever be able to experience this era of automobiles or transportation. Is a big hill for a little engine. How about second gear? There you go. You got it, little guy. You got it. I believe in you. However, it's really kind of opened up my mind to the idea that every generation of car even though it doesn't seem important at the moment. Hey, here's a Volkswagen, have some fun. I think it was a Scirocco. Just because may not be the attitude at the moment, like the cars at the current era matter. 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you will grow an appreciation for what once was. There's just no doubt in my mind that something being made right now will be a car that will be forgotten, and then all of a sudden people will remember and lust after to try and experience what once was. Hopefully, depending on how things go with the gasoline thing. Overall, this trip has been amazing. Thank you to everybody that made it possible. I am definitely very much so blown away by the whole experience of being here. And it's not really like I even did anything super crazy or checked off every single bucket list item that I've ever had. That's not the case at all. More than anything, I just wanted to be here and explore and just kind of live what I feel like is a bit of a normal life, like not so closed in and purely work focused and worrying about the future and stuff like that. The only thing I've been worrying about this week is what can I do today, and holy cow, what is this group of people going to eat? Or, oh no, I have to make myself hungry so that I don't look like a jerk that I don't want to go out and eat while everybody else is hungry. It's the worst part of traveling for me. But it still has been a great experience. I've had just endless amounts of fun. I'm glad that I convinced myself to stay for a little bit longer. I'm sure Kurt is ready for his normal routine to get back into place. Major thanks to him for basically, nixing all his plans or whatever and focusing on being a good tour guide and whatnot. Hey, the scooter pulled over. I can go freely now. Apparently the scooter lives here. Roads like this make the slowest car feel fast. It's great. I love it. And that's what's great about a car like this, is that you can have fun at legal miles per hour, or close to it, versus in modern, crazy hypercars and sports cars, you gotta really do some dumb things to feel like you are pushing the car to limits, or just really getting a driving experience out of it. It's no tail of the dragon or anything, and it's not really even what I would call like some kind of like put it on a list, this is a good driving road kind of deal. And that's almost kind of what makes it better to me, is that it's not a tourist attraction, and it's not something that's drawing a lot of attention. Manual steering and seats that don't support you. Oh man, it's too good. It's too good. But for a person like me, this is the ideal, and that's been a huge thing for me. Is trying to avoid the tourist stuff, and that's probably like super hipster sounding or whatever. But more than anything, it's just that people generally, crowds and whatnot, ruin the experience for me in most things. I feel like I can't truly enjoy what I'm doing if there's a bunch of people there also, either having their own good time, having a good time, or, just having their like family outings and whatnot. The amount of noise and and stuff around just really, it limits my ability to focus on where I am and what I'm doing. Like this really cool ass wooden bridge. So yeah, I've tried to focus on doing stuff like this that's just kind of my own style of touristness, and it's been great. I think I'm going to call it here. This car is very fun. I hope Kurt has a lot of fun with it, and hopefully I've helped in gaining his trust in it, and hopefully I've helped in getting the car, tuned up and a little bit more ready for driving. Hopefully he can have as much fun with it over the next whatever years as I've had over the last couple days with it. And I really do hope that I get back to the Pacific Northwest someday. I don't think I'm in a position to say, like, I'm going to move here or anything like that, but it certainly has been an incredible place to visit with great people and good times. Alright, everybody, that'll do it for this Cone on the Road. Now for the 3,000-mile flight back. Mwah, mwah.